The Battle of Anzio was an important battle of the Italian campaign of World War II that began on January 22, 1944, with the Allied amphibious landing known as Operation Shingle against the German forces in the area of Anzio and Nettuno. The operation was commanded by U.S. Army Major General John P. Lucas, commanding U.S. 6th Corps, which initially included the U.S. 3rd and British 1st Infantry Divisions, and was intended to outflank German forces at the Winter Line and enable an attack on Rome. The success of an amphibious landing at that location, in a basin consisting substantially of reclaimed marshland and surrounded by mountains, depended completely on the element of surprise and the swiftness with which the invaders could move relative to the reaction time of the defenders. Any delay could result in the occupation of the mountains by the defenders and the consequent entrapment of the invaders. Lieutenant General Mark Wayne Clark, commander of the U.S. Fifth Army, understood that risk, but Clark did not pass on his appreciation of the situation to his subordinate, Lucas, who preferred to take time to entrench against an expected counterattack. The initial landing achieved complete surprise with no opposition, and a jeep patrol even made it as far as the outskirts of Rome. Despite that report, Lucas, who had little confidence in the operation as planned, failed to capitalize on the element of surprise by delaying his advance until he judged his position was sufficiently consolidated and his troops ready. While Lucas consolidated, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, the German commander in the Italian theater, moved every spare unit to be found into a ring around the beachhead, where his gunners had a clear view of every Allied position. The Germans also stopped the drainage pumps and flooded the reclaimed marsh with salt water, planning to entrap the Allies and destroy them by epidemic. For weeks a rain of shells fell on the beach, the marsh, the harbor, and on anything else observable from the hills, with little distinction between forward and rear positions. After a month of heavy but inconclusive fighting, Lucas was relieved and sent home, replaced by Major General Lucien K. Truscott, previously the commander of the U.S. 3rd Division. The Allies finally broke out in May. But instead of striking inland to cut lines of communication of the German 10th Army's units fighting at Monte Cassino, Truscott, on Clark's orders, reluctantly turned his forces northwest towards Rome, which was captured on 4 June 1944. As a result, the forces of the German 10th Army fighting at Cassino were able to withdraw and rejoin the rest of Kesselring's forces north of Rome, regroup, and make a fighting withdrawal to his next major prepared defensive position on the Gothic Line. Background. At the end of 1943, following the Allied invasion of Italy, Allied forces were bogged down at the Gustave Line, a defensive line across Italy south of the strategic objective of Rome. The terrain of central Italy had proved ideally suited to defense, and Field Marshal Albert Kesselring took full advantage. Operation Shingle was originally conceived by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in December 1943, as he lay recovering from pneumonia in Marrakesh. His concept was to land 2 divisions at Anzio, bypassing German forces in central Italy, and take Rome, the strategic objective of the current Battle of Rome. By January he had recovered and was badgering his commanders for a plan of attack, accusing them of not wanting to fight but of being interested only in drawing pay and eating rations. General Harold Alexander, commander of the Allied armies in Italy, had already considered such a plan since October using 5 divisions. However, the Fifth Army did not have either the divisions or the means to transport them. Clark proposed landing a reinforced division to divert German troops from Monte Cassino. This second landing, however, instead of failing similarly, would hold the Shingle for a week in expectation of a breakthrough at Cassino, and so the operation was named Shingle. The Anzio Nettuno beachhead is located at the northwestern end of attractive reclaimed marshland, formerly the Pontiner Marshes, now the Pontiner Fields. previously uninhabited and inhabitable due to mosquitoes carrying malaria. Roman armies marched as quickly as possible across it on the military road, the Via Appia. The marsh was bounded on one side by the sea and on others by mountains: the Monti Albani, the Monti Lepini, the Monti Orsoni, and further south the Monti Oronzi. Over all these mountains are referenced by the name Monti Laziali, the mountains of Lazio, the ancient Latium. Invading armies from the south had the choice of crossing the marsh or to take the only other road to Rome, the Via Latina, running along the eastern flanks of the Monti Laziali, risking entrapment, as had been a Roman army at the Battle of the Caudine Forks in 321 BC. The marshes were turned into cultivatable land in the 1930s under the command of the dictator, Benito Mussolini. Canals and pumping stations were built to remove the brackish water from the land, which divided it into personal tracts with new stone houses for colonists from North Italy. Mussolini also founded the 5 cities destroyed by the battle. When Lucien Truscott's 3rd Division was first selected for the operation, he pointed out to Clark that the position was a death trap and there would be no survivors. Agreeing, Clark cancelled the operation, but Prime Minister Churchill revived it. Apparently the two allies had different concepts. The Americans viewed such a landing as another distraction from Cassino, but if they could not break through at Cassino, the men at Anzio would be trapped. Churchill and the British High Command envisioned an outflanking movement ending with the capture of Rome. Mediterranean Theater Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower, leaving to take command of Operation Overlord, left the decision up to Churchill with a warning about German unpredictability. Both sides finally agreed that the troops could not remain at Anzio, but Lucas received somewhat equivocal orders. He was to lead the Fifth Army's U.S. 6th Corps in a surprise landing in the Anzio-Nettuno area, and make a rapid advance into the Alban Hills to cut German communications and threaten the rear of the German 14th Panzer Corps, under General Fridolin von Senger and Dettelin. It was hoped that this threat would draw Germany's forces away from the Cassino area and facilitate an Allied breakthrough there. No one saw the point of taking the Alban Hills, nor was Churchill's idea of a flanking movement expressed. Planners argued that if Kesselring pulled troops out of the Gustav Line to defend against the Allied assault, then Allied forces would be able to break through the line. If Kesselring did not pull troops out of the Gustav Line, then Operation Shingle would threaten to capture Rome and cut off the German units defending the Gustav Line. Should Germany have adequate reinforcements available to defend both Rome and the Gustav Line, the Allies felt that the operation would nevertheless be useful in engaging forces which could otherwise be committed on another front. The operation was officially cancelled on the 18th of December 1943. However, it was later re-selected. Clark did not feel he had the numbers on the southern front to exploit any breakthrough. His plan therefore was relying on the southern offensive, drawing Kesselring's reserves in and providing the Anzio force the opportunity to break inland quickly. This would also reflect the orders he had received from Alexander to carry out an assault landing on the beaches in the vicinity of Rome with the object of cutting the enemy lines of communication and threatening the rear of the German 14th Corps on the Gustav Line. However, his written orders to Lucas did not really reflect this. Initially, Lucas had received orders to 1. Seize and secure a beachhead in the vicinity of Anzio, 2. Advance and secure Colli Laziali, the Alban Hills, 3. Be prepared to advance on Rome. However, Clark's final orders stated 2. Advance on Colli Laziali, giving Lucas considerable flexibility as to the timing of any advance on the Alban Hills. It is likely that the caution displayed by both Clark and Lucas was to some extent a product of Clark's experiences at the tough battle for the Salerno beachhead, and Lucas a natural caution stemming from his lack of experience in battle. Neither Clark nor Lucas had full confidence in either their superiors or the operational plan. Along with most of the Fifth Army staff, they felt that Shingle was properly a two-corps or even a full army task. A few days prior to the attack, Lucas wrote in his diary, "They will end up putting me ashore with inadequate forces and get me in a serious jam. Then, who will get the blame? And the operation has a strong odor of Gallipoli," and apparently the same amateur was still on the coach's bench. The amateur can only have referred to Winston Churchill, architect of the disastrous Gallipoli landings of World War I and personal advocate of Shingle. Availability of naval forces. One of the problems with the plan was the availability of landing ships. Operation Shingle would require the use of landing ships necessary for these operations. Initially, Shingle was to release these assets by January 15. However, this being deemed problematic, President Roosevelt granted permission for the craft to remain until February 5. Only enough tank landing ships to land a single division were initially available to Shingle. Later, at Churchill's personal insistence, enough were made available to land 2 divisions. Allied intelligence thought that 5 or 6 German divisions were in the area, although U.S. Fifth Army intelligence severely underestimated the German 10th Army's fighting capacity at the time, believing many of their units would be worn out after the defensive battles fought since September. Order of battle. Allied forces in this attack consisted of 5 cruisers, 24 destroyers, 238 landing craft, 62 plus other ships, 40,000 soldiers, and 5,000 plus vehicles. The attack consisted of 3 groups. The British force. This force attacked the coast 6 miles north of Anzio. British 1st Infantry Division, 2nd Infantry Brigade, 1st Battalion, Loyal Regiment, 2nd Battalion, North Staffordshire Regiment, 6th Battalion, Gordon Highlanders, 3rd Infantry Brigade, 1st Battalion, Duke of Wellington's Regiment, 1st Battalion, King's Shropshire Light Infantry, 2nd Battalion, Sherwood Foresters, 24th Guards Brigade, 5th Battalion, Grenadier Guards, 1st Battalion, Irish Guards, 1st Battalion, Scots Guards, 1st Reconnaissance Regiment, Reconnaissance Corps 2, 7th Battalion, Middlesex Regiment, 2nd Field Regiment, Royal Artillery 19th Field Regiment, a Royal Artillery 67th Field Regiment, a Royal Artillery 81st Anti-Tank Regiment, Royal Artillery 90th Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment, a Royal Artillery 23rd Field Company, a Royal Engineers 238th Field Company, Royal Engineers 248th Field Company, a Royal Engineers 6th Field Park Company, Royal Engineers 1st Bridging Platoon, Royal Engineers 1st Divisional Signals Regiment, Royal Corps of Signals, 46th Royal Tank Regiment, 2nd Special Service Brigade No. 9 Commando No. 43 Commando, No. 1, 2 and 3 Field Ambulance, Royal Army Medical Corps. The Northwestern U.S. force. This force attacked the port of Anzio. 6,615th Ranger Force, 1st Ranger Battalion, 3rd Ranger Battalion, 4th Ranger Battalion, 509th Parachute Infantry Battalion, U.S. 83rd Chemical Mortar Battalion, U.S. 93rd Evacuation Hospital, U.S. 95th Evacuation Hospital. The Southwestern U.S. force. This force attacked the coast in the territory of Nettuno, 6 miles east of Anzio. The invasion plan originally assigned the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment to make a parachute assault near Aprilia, 8 miles north of Anzio, which would have placed it in position for an early capture of the key road junction at Campolion, which was not taken until late May. However, these plans were scrapped on the 20th of January, apparently because of the high losses during the airborne assaults at Sicily. The 504th PIR was then assigned to land by sea. U.S. 3rd Infantry Division, 7th Infantry Regiment, 1 to 7 Infantry Battalion, 2 to 7 Infantry Battalion, 3 to 7 Infantry Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 1 to 15 Infantry Battalion, 2 to 15 Infantry Battalion, 3 to 15 Infantry Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment, 1 to 30 Infantry Battalion, 2 to 30 Infantry Battalion, 3 to 30 Infantry Battalion, 3rd Infantry Division Artillery, 9 Medium Artillery Battalion, 10 Field Artillery Battalion, 39 Field Artillery Battalion, 41 Field Artillery Battalion, 10 Engineer Battalion, 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion, 751st Tank Battalion, 441st AAA Automatic Weapons Battalion, Battery B, 36th Field Artillery Regiment, 69th Armored Field Artillery Battalion, 84th Chemical Battalion, U.S. 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 1 to 504 Parachute Infantry Battalion, 2 to 504 Parachute Infantry Battalion, 3 to 504 Parachute Infantry Battalion. Southern attack. The Fifth Army's attack on the Gustav Line began on January 16, 1944, at Monte Cassino. Although the operation failed to break through, it did succeed in part in its primary objective. Heinrich von Viertinghoff, commanding the Gustav Line, called for reinforcements, and Kesselring transferred the 29th and 90th Panzer Grenadier Divisions from Rome.